And here we go. Hello, hello. Welcome everyone back to the That Feeling of More podcast. So happy to have you here. And I'm so excited to have a further conversation with Alexis Donkin, who's we were on TikTok doing some live stuff there. And I'm excited to have her share her journey here in this space and talk a little bit about her and the power that she's created for herself. Anyway, so I would love to introduce Alexis, who is a Destructrix, and if you can elaborate on what that is. I did say it properly, I believe. So
you did, and I would even say the Destructrix. I haven't.
Oh,
People don't use this term. It's something that's a little bit unusual, and I actually I was looking for a title for a really long time, and nothing really fit. And so I was like, I would try on different things, and I was just like, oh, this isn't right. And I came across this idea of like, I'm not really a creatrix, that's the feminine version of a creator. I really feel like I feel like a destroyer.
Okay. Elaborate.
Well, and that sounds like, oh man, this went dark fast. No.
We're okay with the rabbit hole here. It's okay.
Excellent. The reason is that in order to make space for new things, we have to be willing to let go of things. We have to be willing to destroy some stuff. And so the more comfortable we are with both the destruction process and the creation process, the more effective and efficient we can be as we transform and we step into the way that we want to experience our life. So
yes. Oh, I love that. I love that you said the Destructrix, because I love that you're just accepting the ownership of that you're like, this is me. This is wholly me. And like you said, it's not about the dark side of it. Is literally, in order to create something new, like you said, we have to change the program. We have to change the ideas, the beliefs that we currently have in order to move forward. It's like the death to the old self. We need to die to that old self in order to move forward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Okay, so tell us a little bit about, let's go through the journey of what brought you to this version of you that you're in today.
Oh man. Well, I am a born psychic and the daughter of 2 ordained ministers. So I had to figure can I swear on here?
Go for it.
Okay, I had to figure my shit out. Okay.
Yeah.
It was tricky because and I'm also a Xennial, and so there really wasn't, I didn't have anybody around me. I didn't have any resources to really figure out how to navigate that psychic journey. And I didn't know if it was okay. I didn't know how to figure out like what was me and what was other, and what was like, am I crazy? Like, what is going on? And so it was tricky. And so it took me a long time to kind of take ownership of all the different experiences that I had, to accept those different things, to really step into it. And it wasn't until I was actually in my 30s that I finally was like, okay, no, I can't deny this anymore. I really have to own this. And frankly, I've always had a tendency to, you walk these liminal spaces, and I know some psychics who can't handle death and destruction, and I don't understand that, frankly, but for me, that is like my bread and butter. I'm like all about that autumn life. Okay.
Well, but that's the thing, is we need to have the yin and the yang. We can't have all light and fairy tales and butterflies and expect, that just to be the whole experience. That's not how it works.
Not at all.
Our life is part of death. And as a psychic, generally speaking, you connect with people that have died. So why can we not understand that connection and have that be part of it and be okay
absolutely. It's actually like we're recording this right, and we're streaming this in the holiday season, right? So this is a pretty difficult season for a lot of people because of the fact that some, maybe you've lost someone over the last year, even a pet, some close being to you, some close family member, friend, whatever. I know I've experienced loss this year, and going through this time can be really difficult, because you're grieving, and I've found, as a psychic, grief is different. It hits differently for me than it does for other people, because if you don't walk this path, you don't have a connection to the spiritual realm, and you don't see the eternity on the other side.
Yes.
You don't realize that, hey, grandma's body's not here anymore, but grandma is living it up in spirit. She is having a blast. And so, I always talk, I talk to people who are grieving, and I'm like, yes, it's sad, to lose the body. The body is unique. The body is glorious. I mean, there's things that you can experience in incarnation that you can't experience in spirit. And that's why we have this, do all the things, have the fantastic sex, have the wonderful friends, eat the cake, go and put your feet in the mud, and dance in the rain, do all of those things, because there's a short time, and it's very short. And then in a blink, you'll be back with everybody that you were missing. And so it's on the one hand, it's sad, but on the other hand, it's it's okay. It's really short. It's just like somebody going on vacation, really.
And this is so true. Like you said, it's so short. And actually I had this, I don't know if you get them, but a lot of people in this space I've found have come across this notes from the universe that you subscribe to. Anyway, so this morning's, I don't know if you saw, but it's a super, is this the right one? Maybe it was yesterday's. It was totally yesterday's. I'll go back on that thought. Anyway, I'll find it. But this was one of the things I struggled with myself too. Before I started this journey, was I had this huge fear of death, fear of death, because it was the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen next. And that was what I know now that what my fear was. But as we've gone through this journey, as I've discovered this whole spiritual side, fear is completely gone, because like you said, yes, this physical is no longer here. And I have helped people cross in my journey. I've helped people cross over. I've connected with people. I haven't spoken with them, but I've definitely connected with their energies once they've crossed, and received some messages. But it's just there's so much more that we're connected to outside of this physical experience, that we just, as soon as we release that idea that they're always here, they're always able to connect with, we don't need to suffer. We do suffer the physical loss, and we're going to suffer. Not saying that we're not going to suffer, but
it's sad.
And go through that experience and transition for ourselves, but they're not gone. They're still here. Their energy's around us all the time.
Absolutely.
So did I find it? It should be here somewhere. Too much. Oh, here it is. Let me figure out this one. This one out. It was yesterday's. To set the record straight, however cool you think it might be to have an out-of-body experience, floating around your house, flying through space, traversing through the past and present and future, let me tell you, it will never be as cool as being in the one you have right now, walking barefoot on the grass, floating in the sun's drenched pool, or dancing alone in the dark. So fly. Anyway, I just thought that was incredible, because it's exactly that. It's we have this physical experience here, and we keep trying to seek something else through drugs, addiction, whatever. We want to seek a different experience, but the one we have here is so damn powerful. Why don't we just embrace that? Anyway, sorry, I went down a little tangent.
No, it's one of the things that I think a lot of people in spiritual circles miss. I think that they're coming back to it. People who've been on the journey a little bit longer and have developed a little bit more, they come to this realization. But I'm going to say people who are more in the larval stages, and maybe intermediate kinds of spaces, there's a lot of I want to have these crazy wild out of body astral projection, whatever. And I'm like, look you need to be here right now because this is going to be gone like that.
Yeah.
Like you need to be going out with your friends. You need to be, you need to be having conversations with the cashier.
Yes.
Like you need to be like doing nice things for people that you see on the street, on the sidewalk, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just like you really have to be here now. And I feel like there's a confusion about that because especially for those of us who are on this journey in the beginning of it, there's this hunger for reconnection. And when we're in a physical body, it's easy to feel separated.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it is. I think that's where the issue is for a lot of people is they want that connection. They want to remember who they are. And really like, this is the party,
Yeah.
so it's better to just like enjoy it. And like, this is the ride, that's not the ride. This is the ride.
Exactly. Well, and like you said, it's like we go through this process where, and this is why my podcast is called That Feeling of More, because we have this experience that we're like, we come to this point in our life, we're like, oh, there's something else out there. There's something else I need to something bigger. And I know this is from my experience of having conversations with people in a community that I used to be in. That was the moment that I know people are ready to have that awakening, that we're seeking, and I say it as where the soul is seeking that connection, that understanding, that expression. And we're ready to move into that next level of ourselves and have this understanding that we are connected. But like you said, it's like, okay, now we want to feel like we're deeply connected and that we remember all the things, but we kind of got to wait for that experience till we let go of this one, but enjoy this one while we can in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, we've kind of gone off on a little sidetrack here, but going back to your journey, which is okay. We're always meant to go off of the right sidetracks. But so you had mentioned about the fact that you had, gone through your experience, and when you hit your 30s, you were like, okay, so, and I wrote something down here, but I can't even understand my own writing. So when you hit yeah, go ahead.
I had to I couldn't avoid it anymore, basically.
It was acceptance. That's what I was
yeah. The process really started when I was pregnant with my first child. And I had a lot more mystical experiences and actually for those of us who have gone through especially a natural birth, because and this isn't like a judgment about anything. It's just because of the way that the space can be in a natural birth. You can really create a sacredness to it. So I really, like I had candles. I felt like I was it was like the whole process, the birthing process for me was a profound transformation, a deeply mystical experience. And it was like, whoa. This is like a really holy thing. And this is powerful. This is wild, because those of us with uteruses, we might forget that we're walking around with spirit portals in our bodies.
Right? We're like the heart of all creation. Hello.
It's like, we're literally the place where spirit and body is knit together.
I love that.
And so, the process of pregnancy and of birth is a very powerful, reality changing thing. And I found that is one of those times where people's psychic abilities can really kind of get lit up and turned on. And certainly they were turned up for me during that time. But it wasn't until a few years later when I was working, I was going through some things. Okay.
Yeah.
as we do.
As we do, as this happens. Yeah.
And so I was publishing my world religion curriculum, and I wrote this interfaith devotional. And when I was writing the interfaith devotional to publish alongside of that curriculum, I was reading all of these sacred texts from these different religions. And I was walking around in this constant state of prayer. It was like 24/7. Everything was holy. And it was like, it was almost, it was difficult because I felt like I was both here and not. And for those, it's almost like being on drugs. But for those of us who have gone through some mystical experiences, you'll understand that sense of being, like it was almost like disassociation, but in a good way. And during that time, I was also meditating. I was meditating a lot, hours a day. And I had this experience that was almost a baptism in spirit. And I can remember everything from that vision. And, it was maybe it was a minute in this physical reality, but it felt like hours, days in spirit. And it was really like, okay, it's time to wake up and do these things, because you can't not. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You've been futzing around for a while. Like, get your ass in gear already. And so after that, it was just like, I had to figure out, okay, now I'm getting all this information. I'm dealing with all the extrasensory stuff. And I had to figure out, okay, how do I want to set boundaries for all of these things? How do I want to interact with spirit? How do I want to use this in my life? And how do I want to use this professionally? Do I want to use this professionally? Well, clearly I meant to use it professionally in some degree, but so it was very intense time. And I think probably reflective of a lot of people's awakenings. You have similar kinds of experiences to that. And then now it's just every day, however I want to experience it, when I want to experience it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What an incredible journey. Like you said, just having that experience through birth of being able to really have that understanding and connection of, like you said, that in that process, you are the most connected and the most in spirit of it because of the creation that you're making. And then this incredible journey that you had afterwards, and just accepting the power that you have, and that you like. And the one thing that you made a really good point of is that I wanted to point out was that you chose. You were asked to make a decision about what you wanted to do, and you made a decision towards, whether you're doing this professionally, whether this is just something you're going through, and you made a decision about what your next steps were going to be, right? From my understanding.
Well, and it's interesting that you raised this question of choice. I think, I don't, so I would say that, I made a deal. You shouldn't do this. Anybody who's watching this, don't do this. Don't ever do this if you don't want to have an interesting time. So when I was young, I felt profoundly alone. I felt very different from other people, which obviously, and it felt like I could not really connect with people. I had friends. I had lots of friends. I had lots of people I would do things with. I certainly was not a loner by any stretch, but I didn't really feel any deep connection. I didn't feel like I had any kind of person with me. And I really wanted a partner. I always wanted a partner, and I just didn't have that. And so as a teenager, again, just don't do this. Don't do this. This is such a bad idea. I said to the universe, I was like, I will devote my life to you, to your work, but I need someone to be with me in this. Like, I need a person who actually understands me, who can walk with me. I can't do this. I can't do this process by myself. I just can't. I need like somebody who can support me. So if you give me this person, I will do the thing. And then I forgot about it because I didn't really get that, at first. Like, I'm a teenager. I've got a few years or whatever. And like, I dated a bunch of people. And then I did meet my husband when I was 20 and he was 19. But he immediately was like, oh. And I was like, oh. And we kind of, we dated other people. And then when we were 23, he was like, I was single and he was single, and he was like, hey, let's hang out. And so we had to go through some things. And I was like, and it got to this point where I was like, should I marry this guy? I don't know. Should I marry this guy? And so one night, before I went to bed, I said, okay, if I'm supposed to marry this guy, you need to like give me a dream or something. Keep in mind, this was before I had fully accepted all my stuff. Okay. But I'm like, all right, you got to give me something. So I went to sleep and I had a dream. And I had a dream. And there were 3 different types of men that it was one, and I was like, no, this isn't right. And there was one, I was like, this isn't right. And then there was him, and we walked off into the sunset, and I was like, okay, well, I guess this is it.
That's
so
pretty clear.
I think we're going to get married. And that it's been 15 years. So I guess that
worked out.
But as a result, I got to fill my obligation. So
yep.
This is, so don't do that. I mean, if you want to.
When you said don't do this, I was expecting some like dramatic, something. No. That doesn't sound like that bad of a deal.
It's not. Well, I mean, it isn't. If you look at like different people over time, I mean, through like prophets and stuff. Not great. Don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, unless you like really feel like this, like if you're like super, you have one of those moments like Samuel's mother in the Bible, or like me, I guess, on something. But just, you will have to pay up eventually. It's just gonna be how it is. So yeah, so that was one choice. I will say I had another choice that kind of came up again before. This was I was a teenager. God,
rebellious.
I mean, so I went on this. I was 19, and I went on this. It was a mission trip, but it wasn't like a normal mission trip. It was like, so we were going to Central America, and the whole thing was to step out on faith, and just, you wake up every day and the leaders of the thing would like have you do random stuff. Like, you had no idea what you're going to do. And mostly when you were interacting with people, it was just to listen to their stories, to just bear witness to them, not to, we're not pushing
do anything. Yeah.
No. And while I was there, had some crazy shit happen. I ended up, I got really sick. I got hospitalized. I was delirious. I was like, if I hadn't gone to the hospital, I could have died. I was going to die. I got so sick, and I had these crazy visions, fighting all kinds. I mean, it was gnarly. And And I came out of that and I was like, whoa, this is tense. And then I had another moment where I came to realize that I was at a point in my journey that I had to make a choice, and it would dramatically change the trajectory of my life. At the time, I was going to, I was dating this guy. He's a nice guy, but like not the right
one.
No.
Yeah.
And I was studying art, and I was at this school, and I was doing this one thing, and then during my time in Central America, I was listening to the stories of how, in Nicaragua specifically, of how war had affected these people. And I was like, I can't study art. Like, am I really going to study art anymore? I can't do this. I could have continued on and done the art thing, and it would have been fine, but it really wouldn't have been where I was meant to go.
Yeah. Well, you were being impacted in your journey and directed and guided.
And so I obviously I broke up with that dude, and I transferred schools, and everything went a completely different direction. So, and every time that I've had those kinds of moments, spirit has been very active. As I said, even before I was really accepting my gifts, spirit was very active and involved. And even now, I have rules about how I interact with spirit. I mean, we talked about that when we were talking on TikTok. Yeah. There are rules. Okay. I don't let spirit reach out to me. Mostly it's me reaching out to spirit. The exception that I allow is when it's important, basically.
Yeah.
And so I have to say, I'm again in one of those times, because spirit has been reaching out more actively to me right now about specific stuff. And it's every time it's the same thing. These big choices, these big moments, like, hey, Alexis, you got to do this thing. Hey, we got to.
You made a promise.
It's a moment.
Yep.
So yeah, it's pretty wild, but yeah, I've got a few of those kinds of stories.
Oh, it's powerful though, because this again, and the purpose of bringing people on here to have this conversation is so that you can share your story, and somebody else will be like, oh my gosh, somebody else has had a similar story. Because as much as we think that, we're in our own unique, and we are each in our own unique journey, there is alignment with other people in our journey. Absolutely. That we don't even realize. And it's funny, like you said earlier about we have these crazy experiences, but other people, maybe not everybody, but there's other people out there that have a very similar experience, and they don't, again, like you were before, where you're like, I don't know what to do here. I'm not connected to anybody. I don't have, nobody else around me is experiencing this, where this gives somebody else an opportunity to be like, oh man, I've heard this before. I've seen this. I've had this experience. And now they feel, like they're not alone. They're not crazy. They're not totally off the rocker whenever you share your story of these types of experiences, because we're never alone in our journey, that we've had this so extravagantly big, different process. Yes. It might be different along the way, but
yeah. Well, it's tailored to you for sure.
Exactly.
While you were just saying that, I feel like I feel the need to talk about something else, because we're talking about feeling alone, and how that spiritual journey moves, right? And you're not actually alone. And even though that's true, there are some times, especially as you develop and you move along, you will feel like you're completely alone. Like you'll have those dark night of the soul moments, which I had a lot of those in my 30s. Oh my God. The world was like, we kept on going through like all these different crises, and then they play in micro ways in our lives,
Yep.
Which people may be experiencing right now.
Yep. For
um
sure.
right. And some of those times you may feel like even if you are a psychic, you may have times where you feel disconnected from spirit, where spirit, like your abilities will feel like they turn off, which if you've been very active can be very unnerving.
Yep.
I think if you are on this path, you will have that kind of a moment. It's like a guarantee. Like you have to go through that. And part of it is because of a need to maintain faith.
Yeah.
Which sounds like, but I already know that this is out there. Well, I mean, yes, but it's not provable to the normies.
Yeah. Well, there's no proof. There's no evidence of it, right? Even though
No,
we've
there's no
just,
way. There's no way.
yeah.
I mean, like,
Eh,
I like, you look at these like ghost hunters and stuff that are trying to like create evidence. I'm like, I understand why you're doing this, because you've grown up with like the scientific method every other place, but this is not the place for that. This is
yeah.
not, you're not supposed to prove this. This goes back to that whole question of like being in the body and like seeking something else. That stuff is, I mean, I think it's kind of bullshit. And I work in this area, like
Yeah.
this is what I do. Like it's part of who I am.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that it's fine if it's fun for you.
Well,
Okay,
and this is,
like go
it's
off
part
and
of
do
the,
it. But
yeah, it's part of the human experience, right? We need to, as a human, we feel like we need to justify, get evidence, collect the evidence, know more, understand it in a deeper way. Where, like you said, it's just coming back to the idea that we just need to have faith, that we just need to trust. And like what you said earlier, is just like, I also believe that we go through these moments, because I've gone through them myself, where it's like you said, being super connected, and then all of a sudden it's like, I feel like I haven't connected to shit in the last like week or two, or like whatever.
yeah,
It's like, what have I lost? What have I let go of? And you try to like meditate to get it back, and blah 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 blah. And like that's just like you said, I appreciate that perspective of that. It's just this process of saying, wait a minute, you just gotta have faith. Yeah.
and also I feel like if you just continue on, I mean, there's this idea in Buddhism of the void, right? Like
Mhm.
they have a similar that's their dark night of the soul, where you have to walk through the void. That's the only way.
Mhm.
You can't stay where you are. It's really too painful if you stay where you are. You have to go through the void, and on the other side is enlightenment.
Yeah.
Period. That's like
Yeah.
that's the next part of the journey. And so everybody, I think every spiritual journey has those kinds of things to varying degrees, and the way that they manifest is a little bit different. But fundamentally, I think this is a process. It's a necessary part of spiritual development for humans. I mean,
Mhm.
we have to do this thing. So like if you're watching this and you happen to be going through this, it's okay.
Yep.
You just got to keep going. You can do it. We've both done it. You can do
Mhm.
it. I have faith in you.
Well, and it's kind of the same thing when you come back to like just the mindset philosophy, or the idea is that, like, we have this contrast that shows up, the darkness of it, of
Mm,
like, you can't be the light, you can't see the light, you can't see the good without the bad.
yeah.
And so you have to go through that in every aspect of the level of understanding of like,
Yeah.
there is a darkness, you have to go through a void, the contrast has to show up in order for
Yes.
you to see the light on the other side, to have that better experience in every aspect of it.
Yeah,
And again,
absolutely.
back to the whole Destructrix. So like has to be a balance of both in order to
There
go through our
does.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I actually have, so I don't use them a whole lot, because at this point most people who come to me for psychic insight want a clairvoyant type reading, like a mediumship reading. But I do have tarot and oracle decks, and my favorite tarot deck it's a weird one. It's called the Alleyman's Tarot, and it was a Kickstarter, and it has like 13 or 14 death cards.
Wow.
It's like a lot, and each one has a different kind of thing, and that is the reason why I got this deck, was because it had so many death cards. And because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Come out, because it's not actually death. It's about change, and it's about the nature of change. And one of those popular sayings that people always say, well, there's only a few things that are certain in life, but one of them is change.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really stays the same. And so I think the more comfortable we can get with that, and the less fear we have about it, and the more we can kind of just roll with it, more fun we can have, really.
Yeah. Well, it's change, transition, same thing. Like we move from one stage of our life to the next, and there's constant transition and change. Like you said, change is inevitable. So I appreciate the fact that you have this, and even sharing the idea that, there's 14 death cards. That doesn't mean 14 deaths, but it means the transition and change that you're going to have, and, and whatever, or how that's going to evolve and how that's going to move into the next stage. Right.
Yeah.
As much as it is death, but
yeah. Well, it's better than a cat, apparently.
You got 14 different cards in there versus just 9.
I mean, you can just keep going. It's like Doctor Who or something. I don't know.
It's inevitable. It's so funny. So, with all of this transition that you've had, this change for yourself and your journey, where are you at now? Where are you going? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm actually, I'm in the process of doing a lot more workshops. And doing a lot more teaching. I love doing my one-on-one work, and that's probably the best way for people to work with me. But I'm feeling the call to do more teaching. I love working with groups of people, and I love even when I'm working with someone one-on-one, I'm very much a teacher. It's my zone of genius. So, if you're struggling to understand something, that's with spirit or with spirituality. That's my wheelhouse.
Yeah. I
will make it accessible for you, and we will have it's like a warm fuzzy. And so, I'm really kind of stepping out with that a little bit more. And that was hard won, because I was fighting that a really long time. It's I've always known that I really enjoyed that, but I think that there's not a lot of support for people who are teaching in education, and so and that's why I didn't go that more traditional route, in part. So trying to figure out how to weave that into where I was took a bit to wrap my head around. And then I was like, sometimes the things that you're best at, the things that come most naturally, they're the hardest ones for you to see yourself. Even if you have like a million people telling you, like, oh wow, you're like this is really good. you're like, really? Like, I'm one of those people that, like, I will dive deep into everything. I was coaching soccer this past fall, and this is just an example. And one of the kids was asking me about my whistle, and I started explaining how the whistle worked, because I had researched how the whistle worked before I purchased one. I mean, that's just the way that I am, so like that's the level of depth that comes when you're talking to me about these different things. We like when I do a one-on-one session, for example, like we will dive deep into some of those symbols. We will go like really hard at some of these things and explore what they mean collectively, but also individually. Because if we're doing anything with clairvoyance, I mean, that's the bread and butter, that's symbols. And
Yep.
so it requires interpretation, because you can't take anything at face value. Everything has multiple layers of meaning, and it's very complex. And sometimes it has a clear meaning at this point in time, but then 6 months later, it's going to mean something else. And then a year later, it's going to mean something else. Because to be perfectly honest, every reading I've done, it's not just for a single time.
Mm-hmm.
It's for now, and it's also for later, and then it's also for much later. So I always tell my clients, be like, you can't, yes, read this and think about how it feels right now, but you're going to have to revisit this in a week, in a month, and in 6 months at least. And maybe even, it's like, I myself had a reading from a medium, was it over a year ago? And some of the things that came up are just now coming to pass.
Because, 100%.
Because spirit doesn't care about time.
No, well, time doesn't exist. There is no time.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing. So
we create it, but there's no, and that's the thing, is like I've had that where I've had reflection, and I'm like, oh man, like literally I did before I started, like I said, I was working with another community and a mentor for like almost 3 years. And over that time, I had seen the evolution of how I'd changed and grown. And I went to do Reiki at one point. I sent some Reiki to somebody, and I got this like major download of information, and I got this like total reflection of everything I've done up until that point. It wasn't about the person I was connecting with to do Reiki with. It was all about me. And it was like, yes, it was validation of, look at all the things you've done. And I just like the unfolding of how each thing went over those 3 years was exactly laid out. And I was like you said, just like going back to like, oh, if I had a thought, I was like, oh, this is why this happened. And oh, this is why this happened. And it was like, oh shit, like, man, this has all been like, I've been led to here. And it's like, that's okay. And the message was very clearly, that was good. You were supposed to be here and do all these things. Now there's something else for you to do. And I was like, so, okay. So literally that weekend, I talked to my mentor, and I was like, okay, I need to go do something else. I don't know what that is yet, but it's that reflection of, like you said, if you see something, or you see like, and I saw it before and I didn't understand it, and until that moment, and then it was like, oh shit, okay. Now I got to step into this. I don't know what this is entirely, but like you did, it's like made that choice of, hey, now I accept it, I got to move forward, whatever that looks like.
That's totally, I mean, that's where that trust comes in. That's where that faith comes in, is like, things won't make sense that you're going through right now. You may be going through some hard things, and I want to make this clear. You could be going through something hard. That doesn't mean that you're supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? Like, I some people say like, oh, all this stuff happens for a reason. Well, fuck that. Like, it can be used, and it will be used, but that's not the same thing as it being here for a reason. Like, you're not supposed to suffer.
No,
I mean, not, do you know what I mean? Like, you're not supposed to suffer. There is suffering. You will experience suffering, but it's not something that like the universe is intending for you necessarily.
No.
So, like, if you're going through a rough time, like, it's trust that it can be used to your highest good. And also it's not, you're not supposed to be, like it's all right. Don't feel like you were damned to this in some way.
It's an attachment to the suffering. And that's what I know, like for me, it's like, that's part of the message, is that we choose suffering, and we're not, it's our choice, and we've created it. It wasn't given to us, But because we have the power to choose it, I keep coming back to choice, but we have the power to choose something different. And it's
Yeah,
not that
you know,
just to change our perspective to butterflies and rainbows, but we can change it.
yeah, well, and I mean, you can even, like, this is that whole, are you familiar with that book, Existential Kink?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
I
you
feel like
need to
I
read it.
understand it, but yeah.
You need to, I think everybody should read it. It may bring you to a nihilist place for a minute, but like, power through, trust the process. It's worth it. It's short. It's worth checking out. But like, one of those things is like, it's about that contrast. You do need to have some of these more difficult things, and this is part of what it means to be alive, is to experience the difficult things and trust that the difficult things are it's part of the process. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to, I mean, one of the tough things with death, with change, is that it requires destruction. It requires some degree of discomfort and pain. If you're going to work out at the gym, you're going to be a little sore, and there's a reason why. It's not going to be comfortable necessarily, and that's part of the process. And so figuring out the kinds of ways that you want to be sore,
Yeah.
the kinds of discomfort that you're comfortable with,
Yeah.
is then you can like fall in love with the process a little bit more and really enjoy the journey. And I think that's kind of like, that's really where I am right now, is it took me a bit to get there, where I was like, because I'm always like, I have a tendency to want to be in the future. So I
feel
feel like
that.
I really yeah, you grow up in capitalism, it'll do that to you. But I feel like I've really kind of settled into like, I like where I am. I like where the process is, and like, I'm trusting that even the tricky parts are creating something. Like I'll be honest, like, I'm in a season of a lot of shit right now.
Yep.
There's a lot of explosions. We don't need to talk about them, but they're happening. And I'm like, okay, this is happening, and I'm trusting that it's working to create a situation that will allow for other things. It's a destruction piece, and we're just gonna, okay, like, just
Just and happy
at a time and just let it be. And then, okay, when divine inspiration strikes, then we're gonna follow, those intuitive nudges, we're gonna follow them, and just let it happen.
It's funny because I feel like I've had that very similar, I'm going through that similar experience of like, there's destruction and some transition happening right now. But like you said, I have this like, I have the feeling of like 2024, man, it is going to be insane. Like, I just know it. And not like, oh, well, it's bad now, so it's got to be better. I just know it. I don't know where it's coming from, but well, we do. But anyway. So you said you were doing workshops and teaching, and what's your
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not really, so it's kind of like a different direction from the psychic stuff. It's I like the workshops that are probably the most popular are I teach an interfaith understanding and relationships workshop, which is really just to help people build empathy despite spiritual differences, and kind of recognize the importance of how religion influences culture and everything.
Yeah.
And then I also teach a workshop on loving the unlovable, and talking about internalized capitalism and mental health. And this is actually like, I want to say these are kind of like the deep dives into like the why behind some of the stuff that I do that's like the psychic and coaching stuff.
Mhm.
So these are more of like the academic and like more like
Yeah.
real world kinds of applications. So because we talk about, we have so many different practices that actually come from religious backgrounds. We have we have all these different self-care practices that, like, why are we doing these things? What's the purpose? And it's to mitigate internalized capitalism. It's like actually that's it. And like the dirty toxic stuff that's in spirituality, like where is that coming from?
Yeah.
It's coming from a lot of places, but one of them is in capitalism. And I talk about one of my workshops is the power of words, and we talk a lot about that in spiritual spaces, is using words with intention.
Yeah.
But then thinking about this takes it like the next level, where it's like, okay, how are we using words to talk about not only the narratives that we mindset things, the narratives that we tell ourselves, the stories that we tell ourselves, but also how are we talking about the world? How are we, what are we talking about with our friends? What kind of content are we consuming? So they all kind of like build on this sense of self-care and self-awareness. It's very experiential, because I'm like, we need to hit all the ways of learning. I am not one of those people that's just going to talk at people. I just don't. I'd much rather that you do the work, because then you're going to like take it in much more, and it's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
we do it. We even do this stuff. I mean, like these workshops, I've been doing them on Zoom, and they're just as effective there.
Oh yeah. No, I do that too. I hear that. So if somebody wanted to reach out and connect to you and learn more about these workshops that you do, and connect with your experience and your teaching and your understanding, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on alexisdonkin.com. That's like all the things. It's a great hub for all the things. And you can connect to my Substack, which is substack.alexisdonkin.com, I think. And I'm also on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, all the places. And then if you wanted to have a conversation with me, like it's probably not, if you have an organization, then yeah, like let's talk about workshops. But if you want to work with me just individually, and you're really looking for some guidance about the year ahead, this is where we should just chat. Let's do an Ask a Psychic Year Ahead session. We'll have a conversation, 40 minutes. If you want to do a shorter conversation, if you're reading this, you already have your year ahead, you can just do a 20-minute conversation. They're really, really great. We'll get you assurances about where you are. We'll get you your next right step. You could even leave with a plan of action for how you need to move on whatever big issues are coming up for you. And it'll be fun because I'll be your witchy bestie.
Yay! Who wouldn't want one of those?
Who doesn't want one of those? Everybody needs at least one.
At least one, if not 20. Oh, this has been so good. I'm just appreciate you and your perspective, your journey, your experience that you've shared with all of us. And just so happy to have you as my witchy bestie.
I love being it.
Being connected. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. And for those that are catching this, if you go in the YouTube, I'm going to have the details to connect with Alexis on there as well. So that's where you can catch it. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful day.